The men who came for Frank Olson wore no uniforms. They arrived in dark sedans on a November evening in 1953, parking at the edge of the Deep Creek Lake property where the cabin waited among bare trees. Inside, a fire crackled. Liquor was poured. The guests, scientists from Fort Detrick, CIA officers from Washington, laughed easily, not knowing that one of their own had already decided what would happen before morning. Sidney Gottlieb, the chemist with the clubfoot and the conscience that ran on a separate track, watched from the corner. He had brought the powder in his jacket pocket. Later, he would slip it into the brandy. Later still, he would watch Frank Olson drink it down, unaware that the world was about to split apart. The year was 1953, and Washington trembled under a different kind of cold. Not the freeze of winter, but the deeper chill of a war fought in shadows against Moscow. There was global ideological battle against the Soviets, and the Kremlin, it seemed, had the upper hand. The CIA's answer was MKUltra, a $25 million slush fund disguised within budget line items for cryptographic studies and technical research. Its goal was simple, monstrous, and desperate. Find the secret of psychological manipulation before the enemy did. No method was off limits. No subject was sacred. In the race to break the human mind, America would first break its own. For 9 days, Olson drifted through a waking nightmare. He stopped eating. He told his wife he had made a terrible mistake. He disappeared into the Manhattan night to throw away his wallet, his identification, his money, convinced that someone was coming for him. On the 10th night, in a hotel room on the 13th floor, he fell through a closed window. The CIA called it suicide. His son, decades later, exhumed the body and found injuries inconsistent with a fall. The truth was worse. Olson had been a liability. He knew too much about the work at Detrick, about the biological agents, about what the agency was willing to do. The LSD was never supposed to kill him. Just loosen his tongue long enough for the men in the cabin to find out whether he could be trusted. He couldn't. And so they took him to New York, and the window opened, and the sidewalk rose up to meet him. In Montreal, the beds were softer, the rooms quieter, the doctor more distinguished. Dr. Ewan Cameron had white hair and a Scottish accent, and a reputation that stretched across continents. He had stood at Nuremberg, assessing the minds of Nazis. He knew evil when he saw it. He simply did not recognize it in the mirror. The Allen Memorial Institute occupied a former mansion on Pine Avenue. Its stone facade suggested healing. Its interior promised rest. But behind the closed doors of the sleep room, Cameron was conducting a different kind of medicine. He called it depatterning, the systematic erasure of everything that made a person who they were. For 30 days or 60 or 90, patients were placed in drug-induced comas. Then came the electroshocks. Twice daily, sometimes 3 times, hundreds of volts delivered to brains already swimming in LSD and Thorazine. When the convulsions stopped, the tapes began. Messages looped for 16 hours at a stretch. You are selfish. You are worthless. You are a bad girl. Then after 10 days of this, the positive loop. You are lovable. You are good. You are worthy. 500,000 repetitions. A soul ground down to nothing and rebuilt, according to Cameron's specifications. Lana Ponting was 16 years old when a judge sent her there for being unruly. She remembers the smell first. Medicinal, chemical, like a laboratory pretending to be a hospital. She remembers the tape playing over and over, the voice telling her she was bad, the drugs that made her scream until her voice gave out. She does not remember giving consent. She was never asked. The larger purpose was never healing. It was weaponization. The CIA believed that if Cameron could depattern a depressed housewife, The same protocol could depattern a captured Soviet spy. If loops of recorded commands could rebuild a teenager's self-image, they could also install a post-hypnotic trigger to kill. MKUltra's 54 sub-projects stretched from Montreal to Maryland to San Francisco, each asking a different version of the same question. How do you guarantee a subject's obedience under interrogation? How do you erase memory to protect an operation? How do you manufacture amnesia, false loyalty, or even remote cardiac arrest using only chemistry and suggestion? The Cold War had no border, and neither did the experiments. In secret labs and basement safe houses, the United States became its own forbidden subject. Testing on its citizens, the very horrors it feared the Soviets were perfecting abroad. The CIA paid Cameron $69,000 through a front organization called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. In exchange, they received detailed reports on how to break a mind and put it back together again. Those techniques would later surface in CIA interrogation manuals. They would be used at Guantanamo Bay. They would travel to Northern Ireland, to black sites across Europe, to any place where the question was not whether a man could be made to talk, but how thoroughly he could be unmade first. Cameron died of a heart attack in 1967, climbing a mountain, his reputation largely intact. His patients lived on, some in institutions, some in their children's spare bedrooms, some nowhere at all, their memories erased so completely they could not remember their own names. On the West Coast, the methods were different. The targets were different. The game was the same. George White, a federal narcotics agent with a taste for martinis and a flexible moral compass, had been recruited by Gottlieb to run a series of safe houses where unwitting subjects could be dosed with LSD in controlled conditions. In New York, he rented an apartment on Bedford Street, wired it with two-way mirrors and hidden cameras, and began collecting human subjects from the city's most vulnerable populations. The deal was simple: work for us or go to jail. Sex workers facing arrest were given a choice between Rikers Island and a nondescript apartment where the drinks were free and the clients were carefully selected. Addicts in the throes of withdrawal were offered heroin in exchange for swallowing pills whose contents they would never know. Some were told they were participating in the medical research. Most were told nothing at all. But why sex workers? Why addicts? Because the project demanded deniability. A sex worker could be disavowed. A heroin addict would never be believed. MKUltra's architects understood a brutal calculus. The most useful test subjects were the ones society had already discarded. If an experiment killed them, and some did, no newspaper would ask questions. If they talked, no one would listen. The program's ultimate ambition reached far beyond the bedroom or the interrogation cell. Gottlieb envisioned a Manchurian candidate, an assassin programmed to act under hypnosis, then forget entirely. He tested twilight sleep, sensory bombardment, drug-induced fugues. He flew to Europe to consult with Nazi doctors who had run similar trials at Dachau. He never succeeded, not fully. But the failure was not for lack of trying. The quiet rooms filled and emptied. The needles plunged. In San Francisco, White expanded the operation. He called it Midnight Climax. The safe house on Telegraph Hill had a bathroom converted into a surveillance post, where White would sit on the toilet, martini in hand, watching through a two-way mirror as prostitutes administered CIA drugs to unsuspecting Johns. The encounters were filmed. The conversations were recorded. The men who walked through that door never knew they had become part of a government experiment. Gottlieb sent psychologists to evaluate the women, to teach them interviewing techniques, to turn them into unofficial intelligence assets. The research question was simple. Could sex be used as a tool for eliciting information? The answer, unsurprisingly, was yes. Men talked more freely after sex, especially about their families, their jobs, their secrets. The CIA filed the findings and continued funding the operation for years. No one asked what happened to the subjects afterward. No one tracked the addicts who disappeared from Skid Row, the prostitutes who aged out of the program, the Johns who woke up confused in hotel rooms with no memory of the night before. They were not meant to survive. They were meant to be data points. Footnotes in a research project that the CIA would later try to burn to ash. In 1973, Richard Helms ordered every MKUltra record destroyed. Sidney Gottlieb personally oversaw the incineration of thousands of pages. Financial ledgers, medical reports, consent forms that did not exist. But some files survived. A few found their way to the Church Committee in 1975, enough to expose what had been done. Frank Olson's son exhumed his father's body in 1994. Lana Ponting filed her lawsuit in 2019. The documents keep emerging. New caches, new names, new horrors. The men who ran the program are dead now. Gottlieb died in 1999, unrepentant. Cameron never faced a single charge. The CIA says it has changed its ways. But the quiet rooms still exist. The techniques still circulate. And somewhere, in a locked filing cabinet, there is almost certainly a file with your name on it. A file that was supposed to be burned decades ago, but somehow, miraculously survived.